The luxury travel boom that once defined Asia didn't collapse with noise or drama, it slipped quietly into a new reality that most tourists never noticed coming. And in 2026, Western travelers are finally walking into the aftermath of that silent shift. For years, Asia built an identity on unstoppable growth, full hotels, and cities overflowing with energy. But today, the cracks appear first in the destinations once considered untouchable. Western tourists arrive expecting the familiar sparkle of pre-pandemic Asia, bright service, perfect efficiency, and effortless charm. Instead, they find a landscape reshaped by rising costs, labor shortages, and industries recalibrating faster than ever before. Luxury hotels that once showcased flawless precision now feel slightly more cautious and stretched. Behind every polished smile sits a quiet pressure to deliver the same experience with half the resources. Seasoned Western travelers instantly sense something different during check-in. It's subtle, a mix of beauty, fatigue, and transition woven into the same moment. Asia's luxury bubble didn't burst because travelers disappeared. It burst because the expectations of travelers evolved faster than the industry itself. Western visitors now come looking for value, depth, and authenticity, not just spectacle. But many destinations are still operating on the belief that glamour alone can carry them. In 2026, that disconnect has never been clearer for returning Western tourists. They're finding an Asia that is still beautiful, but no longer invincible. Countries that grew too dependent on the luxury boom are now adjusting to a new kind of traveler, one who compares every room rate, every service touchpoint, and every experience to global standards. And when those expectations clash with rising local costs, the experience shifts in ways most tourists don't expect. The bubble didn't explode overnight, but inflated slowly across a decade of tourism highs. And now the correction phase is revealing the true foundations of each destination. Some cities are adapting with brilliance, investing in culture, sustainability, and higher quality service. Others are caught off balance, unsure how to meet Western expectations while battling economic pressures behind the scenes. Western tourists who came for value now face prices that feel surprisingly high for the region. And with those higher prices comes a sharper eye for detail, consistency, and genuine hospitality. Places that mastered the art of luxury now struggle with staffing, training, and the emotional energy required to maintain world-class service. And experienced travelers notice the shift immediately. Asia's famous resilience is still present, but it expresses itself differently in 2026. Instead of explosive growth, it shows up through quiet reinvention, trimmed operations, and a new realism across the industry. Western guests who once assumed Asia meant effortless perfection now find a far more human version of the region. A version where hotels balance rising wages, energy costs, and tourism dips while trying to keep experiences magical. For many travelers, this new reality is not a disappointment, it's simply a surprise. But for others, it's a wake-up call that the golden age of unlimited luxury at bargain prices may be over. The shift is not the end of Asia's travel story. It's the beginning of a new chapter where luxury depends less on extravagance and more on meaning, connection, and intentional design. And that shift, subtle but powerful, is why Western tourists in 2026 need to see Asia with fresh eyes. Because the region is no longer trying to impress the world with scale, but with substance. Across Asia, luxury destinations are learning to adapt to a traveler who has become far more discerning than the market ever expected. Western tourists no longer arrive blindly impressed, they arrive comparing, evaluating, and measuring every detail against global benchmarks. This new traveler behavior forces destinations to rethink how they define luxury. Instead of marble floors and tall lobbies, guests now look for sincerity, consistency, and emotional calm. Hotels built around a high-volume, high-efficiency model now face a reality where travelers want slower connection, deeper culture, and more meaningful design. But many properties are still structured for the fast-paced boom years when occupancy mattered more than authenticity. Visitors immediately notice that staffing levels in many hotels aren't where they used to be. Service still smiles, but it's thinner, stretched, and quietly managing a bigger workload than guests can see. In 2026, even the most polished luxury brands show small signs of strain, slower check-ins, longer wait times, or restaurants operating with fewer hands behind the scenes. And Western travelers accustomed to smooth European or Middle Eastern luxury are quick to sense the tension. These subtle cracks aren't failures, they're symptoms of an industry transitioning into a more realistic phase. The grand illusion of infinite hospitality has faded, replaced by a more human and vulnerable version of Asia. Some cities like Tokyo, Seoul, and Singapore adapt with impressive precision. They embrace quality over quantity, raising standards rather than cutting corners. But others, especially those that relied heavily on foreign labor and low operating costs, struggle to keep up. They face the difficult task of maintaining 5-star energy with 3-star resources. Western tourists who once saw Asia as the affordable luxury capital of the world now feel unexpected sticker shock. Prices rise faster than expectations, and travelers become more selective about where they spend. Restaurants that once served premium experiences at bargain rates now charge near European prices. And that shift forces tourists to judge the meal not just by flavor, but by value. Countries that anticipated this shift early now showcase refined experiences that feel worth the cost. But places caught off guard now face the challenge of delivering Western-level service without Western-level infrastructure. What makes 2026 unique is that the change is uneven across the region. Travelers may hop from a city that feels elevated to another that feels stuck between two eras. This inconsistency becomes the new narrative Western tourists quietly discuss among themselves. Experiences feel unpredictable, amazing in one moment, underwhelming in the next. Luxury, once uniform across major Asian cities, now looks different from block to block. Some properties feel refreshed and thoughtful, while others feel trapped in the past. This variation creates a different kind of travel psychology for Western visitors. They're no longer chasing Asia as a monolith, they're chasing pockets of excellence hidden inside a shifting region. In many cities, the soul of luxury is moving away from glitz and towards intimacy. Travelers find more value in quiet tea rooms, heritage inns, and local-run boutique hotels than in massive towers of steel and glass. For Western tourists, this shift feels refreshing when it works well. They feel connected, grounded, and part of something meaningful. But when destinations fail to balance authenticity with organization, the experience comes across as chaotic rather than charming. And this is where the bubble's burst becomes most visible. The pressure isn't only economic, it's emotional. Asia's hospitality workforce carried the region through its golden years, and many are now navigating burnout, rising living costs, and an ever-demanding global audience. Travelers sense the fatigue behind the smiles. They feel the human cost of an industry trying to stay beautiful in a time of transition. Yet despite these challenges, Asia's resilience is unmistakable. Everywhere you walk, you see reinvention taking shape quietly and confidently. Old districts are transforming into creative neighborhoods filled with local craftsmanship, design cafes, and new culinary movements. This shift brings a more grounded luxury that favors character over extravagance. Western travelers who embrace this new version of Asia find experiences that feel deeper than anything from the boom years. They discover that the region isn't declining, it's evolving. Luxury in Asia is becoming less about unlimited abundance and more about intentional quality. It's a shift from volume to value, from speed to soul. And this transformation is exactly what Western travelers need to understand in 2026. Asia hasn't lost its magic, the form of that magic has changed. The bubble bursting isn't the end of luxury. It's the end of illusions and the beginning of something more real. For travelers willing to approach Asia with new eyes, the region still offers some of the richest experiences on Earth. But those experiences now reward curiosity, patience, and respect far more than bargain hunting. Asia in 2026 invites tourists not just to observe, but to engage. Not just to consume, but to connect. The destinations that thrive will be the ones that embrace this deeper travel psychology. And the travelers who thrive will be the ones who understand that luxury is shifting from spectacle to substance. This is the new Asia, honest, imperfect, evolving. And for Western travelers willing to meet it halfway, it may be more meaningful than the boom era ever was.